Greetings everybody. I recently made a video where I said I had began purchasing ETFs for 10 out of the 11 sectors of the stock market, but that I wondered if that would actually be beneficial. Well, after about 2 months of watching the sectors decline, I decided to sell them all and instead buy a single S&P 500 ETF, and I'd like to explain why. First, let me backtrack to why I originally thought that having 10 sectors separately was going to be beneficial. I thought that if any of the sectors sold off, other sectors would benefit and gain. For example, I had heard and read about sector rotation, which is when some sectors or industries sell off while other sectors and industries rise. So I thought, if I have 10 of the 11 sectors, I'm likely to be holding whichever sectors happen to be the gainers of the time. Well, I know this recent sell-off is just one sell-off, but during the past 2 to 3 months, almost all of the sectors, except for energy, sold off, and so it seemed almost pointless to have had all of that diversification because it really didn't benefit me much. In fact, I noticed that I was down basically just as much as the overall market, which makes sense because the overall market and the S&P 500 itself is comprised of all the sectors. Here's an example of what I mean, but the comparison tool only allows for 4 stocks or ETFs at a time, which is why I'm not including all of the sectors. If you average how much the financials, communications, and discretionary sectors were down by, it results in negative 5%. The S&P 500 was also down by negative 5%. Therefore, the diversification of holding the sectors separately didn't provide much of a benefit in comparison to just holding the S&P 500. The other thing that factored into the decision of selling the sectors is how costly it is to get shares of all the sectors. If you add up the cost, it takes about $900 just to get one share of each of these sectors. And even that wouldn't make it equally diversified because some shares, like real estate, only cost $30 to get, while other shares like technology cost over $150. Therefore, to keep it more closely balanced, you would have to buy 4 or 5 shares of real estate to almost match what's allocated to one share of tech. I found this high cost to be inconvenient for averaging down. For example, when the stock sold off, to average down on all of the shares, I would need about another $900 to invest. Or even if I just wanted to average down on one of the shares, if it's an expensive share like the discretionary sector, I'd still need to invest over $150 for just one share. But with the SPLG ETF, however, which tracks the S&P 500, you only need about $50 per share. So it's easier for me to come up with $50 to invest than it is to come up with $150 or $900. What about the dividend yield? That depends on how you allocate amongst the sectors. But if you invested evenly across the 11 sectors, the dividend yield would be about 2.15%. which is about 0.6% higher than the S&P 500's dividend. That's one other thing that initially impelled me to invest in the sectors separately, was to have a slightly higher dividend yield. Alright everybody, I'm not here to discourage any of you if you happen to be investing in the sectors separately. I just wanted to share these ideas and observations for whatever it's worth. Good luck everybody.